joined now by the man we hope is the next senator from the state of Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick. He is running right now against Casey, who's been there for a long time, and he is campaigning in Pittsburgh with Senator Sullivan of Alaska. And I believe we had Senator Sullivan on this show recently, so we appreciate him being out on the road with you. But Dave, what are you seeing out there on the road? We know the momentum for you is through the roof, the amount of fundraising you've been doing, the crowds, everything else. What are you seeing in Pennsylvania for your race, for Trump, and for the possibility of Pennsylvania as a state that can decide not only the presidency, but the Senate?
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I feel a real momentum shift on the ground, and I think what happened is Kamala Harris had a sugar high, but what's happening is Pennsylvania is getting to know Kamala Harris. And what they're finding out is she is a San Francisco liberal with an extreme agenda. And, I think Pennsylvania is maybe the one place where it would have been better for the Democrats to have Joe Biden because he's Scranton Joe, had all these connections to labor and the Democratic infrastructure. So what you're seeing is, President Trump is here all the time. He did 2 rallies yesterday. I think he's got great momentum. He's turning out the vote. I think people that see Harris are starting to recognize she's not qualified and is much too liberal for Pennsylvania. And then in my race, they know that Bob Casey is a 30-year career politician. This is a guy who, when the bullets start flying, ducks his head and has voted he's weak. He's voted for this extreme liberal agenda of Biden and Harris 99% of the time, and he'll do the same with Harris-Walz. So that's why you see this shift. My polling's all closing. I feel great momentum on the ground, and I think if we keep this up, we're going to win.
How much are you seeing? I mean, I think you're in a phase here where Democrats generally, Dave, are a little cornered and feeling a little desperate in a lot of places. Clay and I were talking beforehand. We're hopeful that you will be joining him on the Senate, but it looks like Tim Sheehy, for example, is just blowing out incumbent Tesser in Montana. So there's some really good trends right now. The wind seems to be at the back of top-tier GOP candidates, including you. Looks like you're really close to being able to pull this out against Casey, which would be – the Democrats would be upset about this one, Dave, which would be great. The more upset they are, the happier we are. Are they trying to pull last-minute abortion stuff? I'm just wondering, what is the desperation playbook for Casey in Pennsylvania? Is it, I'm not really a Democrat, I'm a maverick? Like, what are they doing? Yeah. I just want to be familiar with where they are.
Well, the starting point is just, they have more money. And I've raised a lot of money, and I'm a wealth finance candidate, and I'll be outspent by $100 million in Pennsylvania, which is attack ads on all sorts of lies regarding my Pennsylvania roots, my business career, abortion, just one lie after another. It makes you just can't believe the amount of lying. So that's the first thing they're doing. And then Bob Casey really doesn't have a record to defend because he's been a real failure as a senator. So 90% of his campaign is about attacking me. But I don't think it's working. And the reason I don't think it's working is because people want to know they have leadership that's going to take him in the right direction. And that's why the polls are closing. The second thing, in the great twist of fate, I was with Trump yesterday and I mentioned this to him. Bob Casey's actually running an ad saying that he worked with President Trump to put the China tariffs in place. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. President Trump was like, I don't think I've ever met Bob Casey. What's he look like? I mean, this is absolutely shows you vulnerability. And then Bob Casey's flipping all his positions. A good example, it may seem small, but in Pennsylvania it's big. Bob Casey's been opposed to whole milk in schools. The farmers hate him. The dairy farmers in particular hate him because he's not been for this. He sort of bought into Michelle Obama's ridiculous idea that we should take whole milk out of schools. And just last week, he flip-flopped on this issue. He's flip-flopped on many issues. He's all of a sudden a strong supporter of fracking, even though he's been a foe of fracking in every way possible. You can ban fracking without ever banning fracking. You just have regulations and red tape and lawsuits and don't do anything, and that's exactly what he's done. So he's starting it to panic, and I think that's right where we want him. And I've got a experience with this in wrestling. I wrestled in college. I was the co-captain of the team in Army. I would always know if I could get into the third period within a point or two, I'd win, because the third period is not about wrestling. It's about mental toughness. It's about heart. It's about staying in offense. It's about just keeping pressure on this guy, and he's under pressure. He's never had this before, and I think that's why he's wavering.
You absolutely rocked him. I watched the debate. I thought you did a fantastic job. I'd encourage people to check it out if they haven't. I'm coming up with you. I know you've got a billion events between now and then, but I want our audience to know you and I are going to be doing an event surrounding the Penn State-Ohio State game on November 2nd. That's the Saturday before the election, I think, if I've got that date right. And we're going to be in State College.
There are events, and there are events. This is Clay Travis, Penn State, Ohio State, a whiteout, a huge tailgate, you and I saving America. That's what this is about. No, this is going to be epic. I'm so glad you're coming, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a huge turnout, and it's going to be 3 days before the election, so this is going to be a big one.
Yeah, so people out there who are college football fans and also people who believe that we need to take the country back, I will be there. I cannot wait. That's going to be an awful lot of fun. I did want to ask you, associated with that, you were at the Butler rally when Trump was shot July 13th. You mentioned you went to West Point. You were at Army. You've been around and heard a lot of gunshots over the years. What did it feel like to be back in Butler? What was that experience like for you?
Well, as you know, that was quite an experience the first time, because I had gone up on the stage, and then President Trump had asked me to sit back down because he wanted to talk about the border, and then have me back up later, and the bullets followed soon thereafter. This was, I have two reactions to the second Butler rally. One was you just feel this enormous sense of both relief but recognition. It's a time for strength. And the President Trump we saw on that stage at the first Butler rally, shot, under fire. I know Senator Sullivan knows the same thing. When 100 people get shot at, 99 of them stay down. And it takes a rare person to stand up, and President Trump stood up on that day and showed a lot of courage. And I think that's what people want more than anything else, is strength. Second reaction was I sat next to the Comprador family, his widow and his two daughters. One's 28, one's 24. As you know, Clay, I have 6 daughters. And it was just heart-wrenching. I mean, they were so, I think, honored to have their father paid such tribute as an American hero who threw himself in front of them and saved their lives. But it was also just, a family that lost dad, lost a husband, and seeing it through their eyes, the tribute to their husband, Corey, the father, but also just the sadness, the loss, was it almost hit me much more by being with them than the first rally did, even though I know, we had lost his life. Seeing it like that really left a mark.
We're speaking to Dave McCormick. He's running for a critical Senate seat in Pennsylvania, battleground Pennsylvania, the most important state in this election. It seems by far across the board, both for the presidency and then obviously a very important Senate battle underway there. Amazing to hear that you're being outspent by not that he's spending $100 million, that you're being outspent by $100 million. I know that the presidential side of this is $350 million. I mean, I don't know, the money being thrown into these media buys has got to be crazy. Tell me this though. When you come across, I'm sure you do, because you're out there doing what you do and campaigning, and it's the absolute sprint part of this campaign, Dave. When you come across an undecided, or when someone comes up to you and says, I like you, but I'm not sure yet. You know what I mean? I'm sure you have this.
Yeah.
What do they need to know, or what do they want to know that they don't yet that can push them over the line? Do you know what I'm saying? Like when you come across one of these undecideds, what are they undecided about at this point?
Well, I think I'm still, I'm running against a dynasty, and people ask me about that, and I say the thing about dynasties is they all end at some point, and so people know who I am. So I talk about 3 things. I say basically, the country's going in the wrong direction, and most people agree with that. I say this is a choice between a 7th generation Pennsylvanian, an outsider, a business guy, a West Point grad, a combat vet, against someone who's been a career politician, who's been weak, and who has voted for these extreme liberal policies. And then I end by saying, listen, if you think the status quo is okay, then you should probably vote for Senator Casey. You're going to get more of that. If you think we're in trouble, you think we need change, you think we need someone who's going to fight for Pennsylvania and doesn't know anybody anything other than Pennsylvanians, then I'm your guy. And that seems to convince most of those folks on the fence that they should take a chance on new leadership.
We're talking to Dave McCormick. I'm curious, in Pennsylvania political circles, Democrat, Republican, Independent, are there people starting to look around saying, what in the world was Kamala thinking picking Tim Walz instead of potentially Josh Shapiro, the governor there? Because you have to come across not only, to Buck's point, who are trying to decide how they're going to vote, but even Democrats have to be a little bit panicked right now with what they're seeing, right?
Well, totally. Well, I'd say Senator Sullivan and I were just talking about that. I'd say two things. One, just as a political matter, I think it was a bad calculus. I mean, I think Governor Shapiro, who he and I have a number of disagreements, but he's a very able person, and he would have been very strong in Pennsylvania, and he's very, very strong nationally in supporting that ticket. But I think it says a lot about the Democratic Party. I think it's impossible to imagine that the fact that Governor Shapiro is Jewish didn't factor into her thinking because she did not want to alienate the extreme elements of her party. And I think that's really all you need to know about where that party is and what kind of decision maker she is, that she wouldn't pick someone who's far more able and far more capable of stepping into the presidency than what Governor Walz is demonstrating every day, which is he's just in over his head. This is not a guy who's ready to assume the mantle of leadership. And certainly that coupled with Kamala Harris, who's proving in every day with every interview that she's not capable of taking the mantle of leadership, I think it was a miscalculation that showed weakness and moral failure.
No doubt.
What in the very end here, Dave? We got a few weeks. We've got the ballots are already being filled out, sent in, all this stuff in different states. What can people do? We have a lot of listeners in Pennsylvania. We could have just taken an hour of calls the first hour of people calling in from Pennsylvania. What can people do to help both push you, President Trump, and other Republicans across the finish line here?
Well, first, when I talk about me and my race, everything you do for me and other candidates really helps us up and down the ballot. This is a team sport, and so I'm so grateful for all the support that we're getting, and we got to have big turnout. And so for you listening, you must vote. You can't not vote. That's the first thing. But you got to get other people to vote, people to register, people to get out there, people to submit their ballots early, not take a risk of bad weather that day, and convince people who are Republicans to get out there, and convince people that are independents or Democrats who aren't, who are on the fence, that we need good leadership to take us forward. I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, but I'm running to represent all Pennsylvanians, and we need leadership and change. And these problems, the sky-high prices, the fentanyl crisis, the war on fossil fuels, these are problems that affect every single Pennsylvanian. And so I'm hoping we can get people listening today to be energized. Again, DaveMcCormickPA.com for details about my campaign, my positions, an opportunity to volunteer there for people who want to volunteer. But we got to energize our voters because this is the most important election of our lifetimes.
DaveMcCormickPA.com. You just heard it there. I will be with him in PA in a couple of weeks. We may need to get you on again before that, but certainly I look forward to seeing you in State College, PA, for that big game and helping to also win back the country. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
No doubt. That's Dave McCormick. I think he's going to be your next senator from Pennsylvania. If you guys listening in Pennsylvania all show up, get those ballots in. Look, I want you to learn how to diversify your savings and your IRA account with the purchase of physical gold. You don't need to be a sophisticated investor to accomplish this, just a pragmatic one. Investing a portion of it in gold is one way of making sure your value doesn't evaporate slowly over time. And that's what happens when you have your savings account in an all-cash position. Ongoing inflation caused by runaway government spending causes our dollars to lose value. The current price of gold, one indication of why this deserves your consideration. Long-term picture of gold's value just is reinforcing, and that's why we trust the people at Birch Gold Group to help us. Birch Gold will assist you in converting an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Best news is you don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. Text my name, Clay, to 989898. Get a free info kit on gold. No obligation, just info on fortifying your savings with an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. Thousands of happy customers. You can trust Birch Gold, too. Text my name, that's C-L-A-Y, Clay, to the number 989898 for your free info kit today. Get started today in protecting the value of your savings account from the relentless threat of inflation and how it affects the value of our dollar by texting my name, Clay, to 989898.